First of all, how pleased are you? How much of a boost do you think that Boris will be to the Vote Leave campaign?
Well, it's clear that Boris recognises that David Cameron's deal hasn't brought the kind of powers back that David Cameron promised. Now, obviously, Boris has said in remorse that he doesn't want to go against the Prime Minister, but it's quite clear, as Boris made, and also how his wife wrote in a recent article in The Spectator, that the deal, that the renegotiation, does not have the legal weight, and it brings no sovereignty or no powers back to the UK. The only safe option, the only way to actually get the kind of change that we need, the kind of change which will actually allow Britain to prosper and do well in a global economy, is to vote leave.
Lucy, Thomas, are you worried that Boris has backed the Vote Leave campaign? He's a big figure. He's said to be popular and to cut through to voters. Are you concerned?
Well, I think actually this campaign is about far more than any one individual and indeed any one politician. We have people on our campaign who have lots of broad reach too, from inside and out of politics. But actually the real question on the ballot paper is, do we remain with all of the benefits of being part of the largest free trade market in the world, allowing businesses to trade freely with more jobs and lower prices and a stronger economy, or do we leave and put all of that at risk? And not once did I hear from Boris Johnson any detail about what out would look like. Instead, he's just talking about frustrations with the current deal. But he is going to have to answer some really difficult questions. He himself has talked about the benefits of the single market and how difficult it would be for the government to negotiate a deal to leave. So actually, he's going to have to answer those questions.
OK, Robert Oxley, the campaign is about more than just one politician, as Lucy Thomas was saying there. And Boris has made it clear that he won't be linking arms with Nigel Farage and George Galloway, for example, and that he won't be campaigning and arguing head-to-head with David Cameron. So how useful will he be?
Well, look, I think it's incredibly great to have one of the most popular politicians in Britain backing Vote Leave, because clearly he sees it's the safe option in this debate. What we know is that the renegotiation hasn't worked, and actually, if you look at what was promised, it hasn't been delivered to the British people. And I think if we're going to go forward, if we're going to talk about this, you can say that, look, like Boris said, we can love Europe, we love the cosmopolitan nature of going abroad, about enjoying the culture, but we don't like the European Union, we don't like the political interference of Brussels, we don't like the fact that it costs us £350 million a week. We don't like the fact that EU judges in particular, the kind of people who put our security at risk with some of their bonkers decisions over who can and can't come into this country. We don't like the fact that we have handed control over to them. Clearly, in Boris's own words, it is about taking back control. And I think that's why many people will be voting to leave.
Yeah, and he talked about the sovereignty argument there, but to what extent do you expect him to express that as the campaign goes on? He talked about not campaigning, so what will his role be, do you expect?
Well, look, he talked about not wanting to go up against the Prime Minister. I know there's a lot of people in the Conservative Party who certainly feel loyalty to the Prime Minister. He won them an election, but also they're very clear that the deal that the Prime Minister has brought home is not good enough. It does not change the situation fundamentally. It is not legally binding. It is not going to change things on the ground. Clearly, the cost of our EU membership outweigh the benefits. That is why people, while they want to remain respectful to the Prime Minister in this case, have decided to vote leave. And I think, look, Euroscepticism is a diverse group. It's the fact that for 40 years we have been told that we joined a common market, and instead we've got political union, we've got things which hand more power to an unelected commission and unelected officials. That's why there are a lot of people saying that actually we want to vote leave, we want to take back control, and Boris will be one of those many voices making that point. OK,
and it'll be interesting to see to what extent he will lend his voice to the campaign. It's unclear as yet how often we will see him raise his views. Lucy Thomas, to you then, let's look at the reason that Boris Johnson gave for deciding to back Vote Leave. It was about sovereignty, wasn't it? It was about taking back control, as he would put it. That's going to chime with a lot of people, isn't it?
Well, I think when people actually know what leaving the EU would mean, perhaps not. Let's be clear about what sovereignty is and what control we currently have. We currently have a sovereign parliament. The Prime Minister has renegotiated a deal which gives the Parliament more of a say, the power to block legislation. And leaving the EU, we would still have to comply with EU rules. But guess what? We'd have no say over what they are. So if you ask Norway or Switzerland, who in order to access the free market, they have to sign up to those rules. So let's be clear, actually voting to leave means losing control and losing sovereignty.
Would you want to come back on that then, Robert Oxley?
Well, for starters, they often create the straw men of Norway and Switzerland, but both
which
countries
Nigel Farage has talked about today.
Both countries, hang on a second, Lucy, I'll let you speak.
You spoke over me, actually.
Both countries don't want to join the EU, and as many people have made clear, if we had a choice today, if you looked at the EU as something which is a declining share of world GDP, that is incapable of dealing with the modern challenges of the global economy, you would not join it today. That is why clearly people are saying that they're going to vote to leave. And I think, look, we believe a better relationship is possible. We believe that actually we can do a free trade deal, that we can have that trade with the EU without actually having to be members of the political institutions in the same way that we should be trading across the globe far more widely if we could do those free trade deals that the EU currently prevents us from doing.
I just think Robert has to be honest about where we are. We are currently in the EU. We've had 40 years of membership with loads of clearly defined benefits, stronger economy, more jobs, lower prices, and there is no country outside the EU which has this mythical deal that Robert talks about. If we want to remain part of the single market and access that market, we have to accept the rules, we have to pay into the budget, and we have to accept free movement of people. Let's be honest about what leaving would mean. That is the question on the ballot paper. It is not, do you want to join today? It's, do you want to walk away, take a leap into the unknown and throw away all of the benefits of 40 years of membership?
Robert Oxley, Boris Johnson has talked about some of the reasons behind why he wants to vote leave, and I'm sure we will get more details when he does write that column, which was initially going to be the way in which we thought we'd find out about his decision, which way it was going to go. But there will be pressure on him and on other figures who've decided to back vote leave to explain what they think that out would look like. There are questions. The In campaign is talking about a leap in the dark. How big a challenge do you think that is for your campaign?
Well, I absolutely think we will talk about what out looks like. The fact that when we vote to leave, the day after we start negotiations with the European Union, we say, you know what, the deal that we actually got with at the European Council was not really good enough, and we'd be far better, we'd be far safer, and we'd be far stronger outside of the EU. So I think we'd talk about a free trade deal, about the fact that we do want to trade with the EU, the fact that there are huge trade incentives on both sides. German car manufacturers are still going to want to sell us cars. People keep mistaking the fact that we trade with the European Union. In fact, Lucy's entire campaign is based about whipping up fear over this issue, that we do trade with the European Union, but we don't have to be political members. And it's simply not true that countries like Norway or Switzerland even pay into the EU budget. So I think we do need to have that honest debate. But what's clear to me is that remaining is the risky option in this scenario.
Absolutely not.
Okay,
Absolutely
Lucy,
not.
quickly reply to that.
I think let's ask the politicians in Norway and Switzerland who know precisely how damaging it is. Norway's Europe minister says they have to apply 75% of EU rules. You just have to look at the numbers. They do pay into the EU budget, around 80% what we do. You want an honest debate, Robert, you have to be honest about what it looks like.
They pay into specific programmes, so they support Eastern European countries. They pay into the kind of programmes which, if they want to cooperate with, such as Erasmus funding, international programmes which are not about the European Union, they're about the Europe more widely. And those are the same programmes that Lucy and other campaigners keep saying that we couldn't be part of if we wanted to. The point is, I think those decisions about how we spend that 20 billion that we hand to the EU, will be better made by UK politicians elected and accountable to us, not made by Commission officials and EU judges.
Okay. There is not one free trade deal that the EU has with other countries, which includes services.
Okay.
That is around 80% of our economy. So I think let's be honest about what leaving the EU would mean, what options would be on the table.
Okay.
And all of them leave Britain weaker and worse off.
Well, Lucy Thomas, Robert Oxley, you're clearly not going to agree. It's a debate that we will continue to have over the next few months. We really appreciate your time and giving your reaction to Boris Johnson's decision.
You didn't frankly have the balls to put country before party.